stories that created a legend. Now, it's an older article. It's from, I think, about 2013, something like that. So at the time, a major new gallery had opened at the National Maritime Museum, which is in Greenwich in London, dedicated to the iconic admiral and his place in an era of conflict. So the curators, Quentin Colville and James Davey, have written this article, picks out the moments in Nelson's life that propelled him to greatness. So we have a picture of him here. Now, this painting was made by Lemuel Francis Abbott. It's an oil on canvas from 1798. So let's have a read. Okay, so we start with this date down here, 9th of April 1777. The ambitious teenager shows his potential. Passing the lieutenant's examination was a hurdle that everyone with ambitions to become a commissioned officer in the Royal Navy had to clear. Nelson was 18 years old when he appeared before the panel to be tested on diverse aspects of his service knowledge. Meeting with success, he wrote to his brother soon afterwards with the news that he had been appointed lieutenant on a frigate, the lowest of. So I am now left in the world to shift for myself, he continued, which I hope I shall do, so as to bring credit to myself and friends. Perhaps chief among those friends was Nelson's uncle, Maurice Suckling, a captain himself and promoted to the important position of controller of the Navy in 1775. Suckling had carefully guided Nelson's youthful footsteps, finding commanding officers who would promote his advancement and broaden his operational experience. Indeed, the two ships in which Nelson began his naval service as a boy in 1771, Reasonable and Triumph, were both captained by Suckling. 6 years later, the key supporter also sat on the board that examined Nelson for his lieutenant's commission. Patronage was, of course, part of the bedrock of 18th century British society, and Nelson was typical of the wider officer corps in seeking to benefit from a powerful contact. However, influence was rarely the sole basis of naval success. It was professional knowledge that the examination was designed to probe, and the patron who backed a dunderhead jeopardized his own reputation in the short or long term. So at the top we have a picture. This is a portrait of Nelson from 1777 when he was lieutenant by John Francis Regard. Next date is 11th of March 1787. Nelson marries into wealth and respectability. The 10 years of peace that followed the American War of Independence put Nelson's naval career on hold. In 1787 he married Frances Fanny Nisbet, a young widow from a wealthy plantation family on Nevis, one of the Leeward Islands. Contemporaries described her as pretty and artistic, though intellectually unremarkable. Prince William Henry, the future William IV, and a fellow naval officer gave the bride away. Privately, the prince wrote more critically to Samuel Hood, saying, unsuccessfully, petitioning the Admiralty for a command. With the Navy reduced to a minimum footing, there were too few active ships for even a promising naval officer. Residing over 100 miles from London in Norfolk and seemingly forgotten by the naval establishment, he lived the life of a country gentleman waiting for his opportunity. Now, this is a miniature of Lady Nelson by Daniel Orme in 1798. Let me show you a bit closer. There we go. Then we have the 1st of February 1793. Nelson goes to war with the French. More than any other event, the outbreak of war between Britain and France changed Nelson's life. His career was seemingly going nowhere, but then, all of a sudden, the deteriorating relationship between the two nations transformed his prospects. Since the outbreak of the French Revolution in 1789, Britain had watched nervously as the political regime grew more extreme, and revolutionary armies marched across Europe. The French invasion of the Low Countries in late 1792 and the execution of Louis XVI in January 1793 heightened British fears. As the two nations edged closer to war, the British government began to mobilise its navy in preparation, and on the 6th of January 1793, Nelson was given command of the 64-gun ship Agamemnon. On the 1st of February 1793, France declared war on Britain, a turn of events that would be the making of Horatio Nelson. He was immediately sent to the Mediterranean, where he learned from one of the most able commanders of the fleet, Lord Hood. In the following years he saw service across the Mediterranean and won a reputation as a promising officer. He was given his first independent squadron command, blockading the French and Italian coast and supporting the Austrian army. Nelson also secured the attention of Admiral Sir John Jervis, the Commander-in-Chief of the Mediterranean Fleet. Then, in April 1796, Jervis promoted him to the rank of Commodore. In the following years, in the crucible of war, Nelson would go from being one of the many hundreds of ambitious officers to the nation's greatest admiral. So this is a picture, it's a cartoon from 1798 by James Gilray. It's titled Fighting for the Dunghill or Jackdaw, Settling Bonaparte, and shows a stout British sailor here, bloodying the nose of Napoleon Bonaparte. Let me show you a bit closer. They're sitting on top of the globe, with Europe underneath. Then next we have 14th of February 1797. A high-risk manoeuvre pays spectacular dividends. Nelson's actions at the Battle of Cape St. Vincent saw him catapulted onto the national stage for the first time. On the 14th of February 1797, Sir John Jervis intercepted a Spanish fleet off the coast of southern Portugal. Nelson recognised that Jervis's expansive tactical manoeuvres could not be completed, and that the enemy fleet would soon escape. He took his ship, the Captain, out of the line of battle and attacked the leading Spanish ships, closely followed by Culloden, under the command of his friend and rival Thomas Trowbridge. An intense fight ensued amid the broadsides. Nelson's ship least Jervis could deny that he had played an important role in winning the battle. Of the 4 ships captured, 2 had been taken by Nelson. Nelson took steps to ensure that his deeds would be read about across Britain. In a canny public relations exercise, he sent home his own account of the battle, which gave a dramatic description of his actions. As a result, his successes were widely reported glamorous wife. By then, Emma Hamilton already enjoyed European fame as an artist, model, a singer, and also for her attitudes, neoclassical tableau vivants that she performed to immense acclaim. The 35-year-old officer was doubtless flattered by her company. A great deal had changed in the interval before their second encounter in 1798 as victor of the Nile. Nelson was now at the centre of the national and international stage himself. Emma realised that following the crushing defeat of the French fleet in Abaco Bay, his arrival in Naples was an unprecedented opportunity to enhance her own celebrity by association. She wrote him a letter of gushing adulation. "My dress from head to foot is a la Nelson. Even my shawl is in blue with gold anchors all over. My earrings are Nelson's anchors. In short, we are be Nelsoned all over." When Nelson's flagship Vanguard dropped anchor on the 22nd of September, Emma made a dramatic appearance on deck, where, in Nelson's words, she fell into my arms more dead than alive. The love affair that followed was the defining relationship of his later years, and as Nelson grew ever more cold and distant to his estranged wife Fanny, a gold mine for caricaturists. However, Victorian commentators, determined to find only a desire for duty and service burning in their warrior exemplars, it posed something of a challenge. Now this here is the gold betrothal housing